There are many things these days that feel as pure as they used to, but when it comes to Doom, thankfully the core gameplay loop has retained what the series has always been about. And if you ask me, the modern reimagination of Doom has been some of the coolest first-person shooter experiences I've had the pleasure of playing in years. Doom is pure. When I mean pure, of course I'm referring to the fact that it just gets what it wants to be from the get-go. You're Doom guy, there's demons, go kill them. I respect that simplicity a lot, especially these days. What I also love about Doom is that the games aren't really injected with the political stupidity that we've come accustomed to from other westernized studios and their games. Whereas Dragon Age would go full trans and Sony would try to shove Concord down our throats, id Software thankfully just kept Doom pretty much free of a lot of that sort of nonsense and instead focused on just delivering a cool game. But while being a cool game with no political agenda is a surefire way to score well with fans and having them open their wallets so that they can resize the holes of demons with chainsaws and shotguns for the usual activist types, well, it isn't enough. According to this one article, now infamous, Doom the Dark Ages, which is basically Doom on medieval steroids, is too masculine, and that's a problem, and the reboot series is apparently all about capitalism. Yeah, let's just get into it. So Rolling Stone magazine, yeah, that Rolling Stone, dropped a preview titled, Doom the Dark Ages feels like an Xbox 360 shooter in a bad way. Generic in visuals and tone, Bethesda's medieval prequel slows down the action and confusingly strips the game of everything that makes modern Doom great. Doom is now bad according to Rolling Stone, and it's not Doom enough. Oh boy. Early on in this article, Rolling Stone drops this bomb which reads, the Doom Slayer, a previously generic Jughead Space Marine type colloquially dubbed Doom guy in the old games, is no longer just a force of nature. He's a man forced to contend with the denizens of hell, a lapdog to some greater will that uses his destructive inclinations to save the world. At its core, it could be a delicious premise that Doomslayer was a slave to capitalism in Doom 2016. The soft reboot that revived the franchise and is now origins as a slave to a religious theocracy sounds like something that could be cool as hell to explore, at least it should be. Wait a second, capitalism, Doom? Let's dive into that for a second now too. There is some truth to what Rolling Stone is saying here, kind of in a way that the modern Doom games have been for the developers at id Software, to maybe poke fun at things like capitalism and religious extremism, which the latter is definitely something that is, let's be honest, intrinsically tied to a game where you're literally killing demons all of the time. Obviously, in the original Doom 2016 reboot, the UAC, which is this big mega corporation, is a company willing to do anything they can to just ensure they keep growing as a corporate entity. They quite literally are selling their souls by using hell as a sort of mineral deposit, if you will, to get more materials so they can make more money. And then going into Doom Eternal, this idea does in a way get further explored, although instead of a human organization, it's relegated simply to heaven and hell. In Eternal, the makers within heaven are like the billionaires, I guess if you will, of our modern world. They're completely out of touch most of the time, and they don't really see the problems of others as anything important to worry about, because the other 99% of the population to these makers doesn't really matter at all, because everyone else is just meat for the grinder, quite literally, I guess, in Doom's case. And this is further enforced since in Doom Eternal, the makers need what's called Argent Energy, which if you don't remember what that is, it's a power source that effectively keeps Heaven's world running properly. And Argent Energy is created from the souls of humanity, so essentially Heaven is a corporation in the Doom's reboot eyes, kind of, to be their own version of a mega monolith company. Replace Heaven with, say, Microsoft or Apple, it's kind of basically the same thing. Although I do think id Software was smart to not make either side technically the good guy here. Neither hell or heaven is treated as the good side, because if they were to choose that, it would piss off some, making others happy and cause everyone to be bitter. Perhaps it's more interesting that all sides are like countries on Earth, having their own good and bad sides to them, and nobody is necessarily 100% pure and good, but of course I can see the argument people have, because heaven, in many religions, is meant to only be good aligned, so I get it. But this is Doom, and I guarantee that most people who even played both of these games don't even remember anything I just mentioned about either of those games, probably, because all they really cared about was what really mattered anyways, which is to rip and tear until it's done, and hey, that is totally fine. But let's be real, even if you agree or disagree if these games are somehow political, let's state it how it really is. First off, Doom 2016 and Eternal are set in a universe where Hell's demons are invading Earth, and the Doomslayer's mission is to, murder them all to save humanity. And the UAC, or Union Aerospace Corporation, is a shady mega corporation that accidentally opens hell portals while messing with heaven's argent energy. Sure, they're greedy and dumb, but the story isn't about fighting capitalism, it's about fighting literal demons. But like I said, I can see how people can make the parallels there, but if you disagree with this take, it's also perfectly fine and viable as well. You may think this makes the Doom games political, but there's a difference here that I want to ensure that people understand. There's a difference between political as we know it and what I would call safe political stories. The usual political nonsense is where games are set in a fictional world, yet they adhere to and implement real-world concepts that are very clearly tied to our very real world. A good example of that is the non-binary stuff in Dragon Age Veilguard. Such a term would never exist in Dragon Age's world because it's not our world, and having that term be so 2024 coded in a medieval fantasy world would feel very out of place, and safe political, however, is kind of what Doom and other games do instead. Sure, it has heaven and hell and capitalistic somewhat references depending on who you ask, but they tie these concepts to the worlds of heaven and hell in their own unique way. I guess calling heaven capitalistic might be the wrong word for it, because it makes sense that heaven would run on the souls of people who died, since when people die, technically that's where they would go anyway, because it's heaven. So it's an interesting twist on the idea of how we as human beings view the concept of dying and where our souls go when we pass away, if you ask me. To believe that your soul, instead of going to be with your loved ones for the rest of eternity, is instead being used by basically alien gods in some other dimension that we call heaven in Doom's universe as literal fuel. It twists the idea without really offending, say, Christians or Catholics, because heaven in this version of Doom is not really the heaven that we're accustomed to, because again, Doom is not set in our real world, so to speak. It has its own mythology and its own version where it can play with such ideas. It's just, for lack of a better way of saying it, another world that exists, just like Earth does, and I guess hell is its own world too. But if you ask me, when it comes to dealing with more modern depictions of stuff, I think how Doom did it was good, because clearly it didn't piss off people enough to make them want to boycott these games in the past or anything like that. However, this is where the video gets stupid thanks to Rolling Stone, so let's rip and tear into this now. Their preview of Doom the Dark Ages came from a hands-on event in Los Angeles. They played a work-in-progress build and came out swinging with a hot take hotter than a Hell Knight's fireball pretty much. One of their big gripes, Doom the Dark Ages is too slow, too dodge and parry, and I quote, feels like a cheap copy of other action games and not Doom. They're mad that it's not the run and gun and rip and tearing chaos of Doom 2016 or Eternal. Instead, it's got Souls-like mechanics and a shield saw for parrying and a stand-and-fight vibe instead. They even dissed the demons, claiming that they were big and dull with lipless mouths, like they expected the cyber demon to be serving heavy metal magazine aesthetics. Now, I'm not saying that Rolling Stone's gotta love every game, but this take feels like they showed up to a death metal concert and then complained that it wasn't jazz music instead. For those unaware, Doom the Dark Ages is a prequel set in a medieval fantasy hellscape with dragons and mechs. It's not supposed to be Eternal 2.0, and game director Hugo Martin himself said at an Xbox Developers Direct that in 2016 we asked you to run and gun, in Eternal it was jump and shoot, and in Dark Ages you're gonna stand and fight. And the shield saw, by the way, it's not really just a weapon, it's also a movement tool this time around too. You surf around across gaps like Prince of Persia pretty much. You can parry attacks and toss it like your goddamn Captain America throwing his shields at demons with a buzzsaw boomerang. But Rolling Stone's acting like id Software forgot how to make Doom somehow. Which I don't know about you guys, but me looking at the footage on screen here, yep, this looks like Doom to me. Maybe I'm stupid, which I am to a degree, but the more I read this article, the more my eyebrows just keep on raising. Rolling Stone then says this: instead of the series' signature blood-pumping running and gunning with fast-paced demon-killing score to a metal as hell soundtrack, Doom the Dark Ages is a slower affair and feels like a cheap copy of many other action games decidedly not named Doom. Relying on dodge and parry mechanics that feel more at home in a Souls-like, this upcoming title by id Software is looking to reinvent the core gameplay of Doom that has defined the series in recent years, and the result is both lackluster and confusing. First of all, we both know if Doom the Dark Ages didn't reinvent itself or change its gameplay somehow, these same types would be complaining that the game doesn't do enough to reiterate its formula. Yet now it's a problem that id Software has changed how Doom plays here, and instead of praising this unique change, they now hate it. You really can't please these people that much, unfortunately. You can't give them new things wrapped in stuff they understand, and they still won't like it. But if you ask me, Dark Ages looks metal as hell. I think it looks awesome, man. Maybe it's because I'm a sucker for shields in video games being thrown like Captain America, and I just enjoy killing things in video games per pretty much. It's probably that masculine urge that gets itched in the nether regions of my brain when I play something like Doom. I can just feel my testosterone levels rising as I rip and tear big ugly monsters like they're piñatas. And I love the aesthetic of these games. Unfortunately for Rolling Stone, they hate this too, and then they say this: Doom the Dark Ages flings the player back into the Dark Ages to witness a war between two factions that look like a low-rent knockoff imitation of series like Warhammer, Grotesqueries, and all. Enemies are bloated, fat, and covered in armor, or are made of sinew and bone, standing 2 heads taller than the already hulking Slayer, while some perch on the back of what can only be described as flesh dogs mounted by generic-looking demons adorned in cruel-looking plate. I mean, what you just explained sounds rad to me, so they got demons that tower over me that I can rip in half and kill myself? Yeah, fella, sign me up. They then bring up this part which has now made this article kind of infamous, which reads, "The new aberrations are big and dull with lipless mounts, unremarkable in their aesthetic, when it should be something more in line with the high-end horror art you'd find thumbing through your dad's heavy metal magazine." This is the part where Twitter kind of went, so Rolling Stone is mad that Dark Ages is catering to the male fantasy of ripping demons apart like freshly baked bread, and because id Software is catering to an aesthetic that makes Doom look badass, this is somehow a bad thing. So the blatant hypocrisy on display here is for all to see, because what this writer is claiming is that Dark Ages is bad because it appeals to male players. And then if you ask me, is kind of insane, especially since we're not talking about Animal Crossing here, but freaking Doom of all things. Why shouldn't Doom cater to the male demographic? One look at this game's cover art or the gameplay you've been seeing on screen, and everything being shown is 100% what male players want in their games, if you ask me. Because we want less therapy sessions and the deconstructing of the male patriarchy in our games, and more stuff that is just fun to play and gives us escapism to have fun while we spend our hard-earned money. There's nothing wrong with Doom catering to the male demographic, because if you ask me, Doom is, whether this writer or others want to admit, this series is intrinsically tied to the aesthetic and values of what men look for in video games. Most guys prefer playing as badass dudes in video games. We all know this. This is why for decades, many game companies have made it clear to almost always feature a badass, able-bodied male on the cover of their games. Go look at any Call of Duty cover pretty much ever, Halo, Gears of War, God of War, the list just goes on. Even in series where they claim the female option is canon like Assassin's Creed Odyssey or Valhalla, they still marketed those games featuring the male protagonists on the cover and in their promotional material. The reason being is what I've been saying, being pro-masculine, pro-male, and pro-consumer, let's be real, is a surefire way to success. Doom Eternal was a massive hit for id Software, and good for them. I really enjoyed that game a lot. Unfortunately, I'm not the best at those sorts of games myself. I wish I was better at them, the same way I wish I was better at Devil May Cry or Ninja Gaiden 2. But even for someone like me, I still love these sorts of games for the raw power fantasy that I get from it, because there's something pure, like I said in the beginning of this video, about Doom as a concept. It's just badass to play and look at. Maybe the only claim this Rolling Stone magazine may have is near the end, where they state that the music is not on par with Mick Gordon's soundtrack, and I mean, yeah, unfortunately, that is probably the case. Because let's be real, Mick Gordon's Doom soundtracks are pretty much legendary at this point. I'm even seeing the influence of Mick Gordon's sound and mixing in modern day heavy metal bands too. For example, the song Seeing Red by Architects, as seen on screen here, a band that I love, is mixed and produced by Mick Gordon, and yeah, go listen to that song to see exactly what I mean by that. Another good example is the Bring Me the Horizon album, Post-Human Survival Horror, which was co-produced by Mick Gordon as well. You can go listen to that album as well if you haven't already to see what I mean. But the point is that sure, I don't expect Dark Ages soundtrack to slap like Doom 2016 or Eternal, unfortunately, but Mick Gordon was notoriously mistreated by id Software's top executives during the development of Eternal. You can find plenty of videos about that online. The guy wasn't paid for almost a year for the music that he wrote, and then id Software used music that Mick wasn't paid to do in the game, and even one of the sound engineer guys was then claimed to be a co-writer and creator of many of Eternal's songs when he wasn't either. There was a big lawsuit about all of this, but anyway, I'll give Rolling Stone that at least. Yeah, the music might not live up to the hype, but circling back to the fact that Dark Ages is, too masculine, I do want to bring it to the attention of all of you who exactly is behind this article. Because I read the name of the writer here, which is Kazuma Hashimoto, and I swear I've heard that name before somewhere, so I did some digging, and lo and behold, my search bore the fruit to prove that this article is a psyop hit piece by Rolling Stone because masculinity is not a good thing in video games according to the industry. By the way, don't harass this person or anything like that, but Kazuma Hashimoto, who wrote this article, is a trans man who's written articles like these before for other publications. Let me just read you the title of the other articles they've done in the past, and I think you'll understand the angle here very quickly. Here's one by Kazuma titled, How Gay Can You Be in Dragon's Dogma 2 and Investigation? Oh, they're one of those writers, aren't they? But no, they're not, I hear you say. Okay, here's another article this same writer wrote titled, Hades 2 2 is just as horny as the already very horny original. Oh yeah, fellas, they are one of those writers after all. The ones who will complain that other games are too masculine, which is a bad thing, but they will of course bow down and suck the toes of certain games that give them their progressive slop that they always yearn for. Still don't believe me? Alright, here's another article this same Rolling Stone writer wrote, and this one's a doozy, and it's titled, Dragon Age the Veilguard is full of pansexual chaos and great character writing. Oh boy, there it is. The golden chalice of an article to show the hypocrisy and the clear agenda bending of this Rolling Stone article writer who thinks that Dark Ages is too masculine and heavy metal and not like Doom at all apparently. They've also written for websites like them.com, which is a website that promotes LGBT plus writers and opinions, and in their Dragon Age Veilguard piece, they even have the Modern Audience Slop headline, which reads as seen here, the series returned to form with a crew of memorable companions and romance options. How wrong you are, Kazuma Hashimoto, who I assume is a woman who has transitioned to being a man now. I could be wrong, but anyways, this Kazuma clearly has a deliberate agenda to push here when it comes to why they believe that Dark Ages is problematic to them. But there's also the Hail Mary crescendo delicious slice of vanilla ice cream on this apple pie revelation that I have yet to show you, because it will prove to you all why this sort of activism writing is really still plaguing modern gaming. You see, this Kazuma Hashimoto here, which by the way is not their real name but their pen name, but they are also someone who's consulted with one company, which is none other than, yup, that one, it's Sweet Baby Inc. The very same person who deems Dark Ages as too masculine, too heavy metal inspired as a problem is the same person that this article from 2024 from That Park Place is about, which is titled, Former Sweet Baby Inc. employee implies developers did not want to hire him after working for Kim Belair's company. And this very same Kazuma was discovered by Smash JT that this very same person ran biased damage control for Assassin's Creed Shadows and downplayed the backlash from Japanese audiences when it came to that game regarding Yasuke, as it reads here. Hashimoto provided more details about the New York Times, saying a couple of months ago the New York Times actually got in touch with me to ask about Assassin's Creed, in which I was like, yeah, reception's honestly like kind of positive, and a lot of the comments you'd see under videos were like straight up like Google Translate comments, which is pretty obvious. So the same person who's trying to gaslight you into believing that Dark Ages is a problem because it's too masculine ran damage control for Shadows, and also wrote propaganda claiming that Dragon Age the Veilguard was a return to form that has great companions and amazing romance. I should also mention that this Kazuma did not consult on Shadows, but they did confirm by their own free will that they did work for Sweet Baby Inc. on certain games, but they never actually revealed, nor has the internet as of this video being released anyway, do we know which games this same person worked on. However, given the backstory I've now given you, which was completely unknown to you until right now, you can now see that this article is 100% an activist-led piece of propaganda that is written by a former Sweet Baby Inc. employee who didn't have a problem with Hades 2 being horny or whatever else they've said in the past. Or if Veilguard is a return to form, which it isn't by the way, or writing slop like how gay you can be in Dragon's Dogma 2. But one of the only times that I can find where this same Sweet Baby Inc. employee has almost nothing but negative things to say about an upcoming video game, and lo and behold, it's Doom the Dark Ages, a game where you play as a straight white male in a power fantasy where you rip demons in half and bathe in their blood. But this is in the eyes of someone who very evidently has worked tirelessly to turn the games industry into what I can only call a communist socialist hellscape, is now trying to gaslight viewers into believing that Dark Ages will be bad because men. Not because it said anything problematic or that its developers are bigots or anything else. No, the problem with Dark Ages is simply that the game is too masculine, too straight, and not propaganda heavy enough in the direction that they want. Oh, the horror, dear viewers. How dare id Software release a game like this in the year that is 2025? Shame on id for wanting to make money and ensure they don't have layoffs during a tumultuous time where seemingly both game developers and journalists are being thrown to the wayside at alarmingly high rates as their propaganda slop resonates with no one but their own echo chambers. How could id Software do this? A game where you play as a white male in 2025? This is sacrilegious. I dare say this is modern heresy. White people are the devil. Don't you know that? How dare you want to play something like this? Oh, you're all such bigots. You should all be thrown in jail because you want to play Doom so badly. This Kazuma Hashimoto even said in their article that the mech and dragon riding sections of the game are too simple and said the game feels like an Xbox 360 shooter, but in a bad way. Okay, buddy, you played a pre-alpha build firstly. Maybe chill before you yeet the whole game into the trash. Secondly, saying that the game is like an Xbox 360 era shooter as somehow being a bad thing again shows the blatant bias behind how this writer perceives the games industry and the creative decisions within it. Because the games industry tried the same thing with this same sort of narrative that the game was too masculine and an Xbox 360 shooter when it came to Space Marine 2 last year. And what happened with that game? game. Alright, it sold over 4 million copies, had a sequel quickly greenlit, and all the devs are still gainfully employed, and the game has been receiving updates for a while now, and fans love that game. And I think this stupid narrative of both attacking games like Space Marine 2 and I guess now Dark Ages by claiming that they're too masculine, it's just dumb. What, there's too much muscles for you? You don't like the whole white male protagonist thing? Why can't the Doomslayer be a pansexual black they-them person or something instead, It's kind of, I don't know, problematic maybe. Could they maybe add a little romance to Dark Ages perhaps? Have Doom Guy swip some spit with a fellow Marine, or maybe 3 at the same time? Ooh, that would be risky. Or why don't we change his gender to a body type instead? That could make this game infinitely better for those out there who see everything in a political way like this Kazuma does. And again, they complain in the article that the dragon flying and mech suit sections are bad. They say during the article here, which reads, piloting the Doomslayer's mech feels no different, but instead of sluggish flying mechanics, the experience centers on weightless feeling navigation through a red-hued futuristic city filled with massive demons. There's no real feedback with going toe-to-toe with hell's strongest soldiers. The large swings of the mech's fist or its charged punch flak punch, just like piloting the mech itself, instead of moving with strength or purpose, the suit is agile, lithe, and capable of sliding out of the way of green projectiles to trigger a slowdown and gain access to more powerful attacks. It doesn't feel in any way distinct from running around as a Doomslayer himself, which feels like a total waste of the premise. Oh yeah, shame on id Software for wanting to make their mech suit more agile so it can, according to your problem here, dodge out of the way of attacks. I don't know, man, that seems kind of important in a game where such concepts matter, don't you think? And saying that it's pointless. The point is that you get to play a massive Megazord in a hellscape punching big-ass demons with your robot fists. Look, not everything has to be as in-depth as all the genders you've studied for your useless gender studies degree, you vacuum of positivity and happiness. Look, maybe I'm simple-minded, which I am to a degree, I admit, but again, this just sounds like someone who's mad that this game is too masculine and heavy metal looking, and is also giving into another two power fantasies that male players specifically love and stuff like this. One is piloting a cyber robot dragon. Every dude that just heard that sentence said hell yeah in their brain just now. Are you kidding me? A robot dragon I can fly and burn stuff with? That is cool, no matter the concept of the game. And then you're telling me within this massive interconnected world that id Software has made, which I can run around as the Doom Guy and kill stuff in, I can then get inside of a gigantic mech and suddenly that big zone I was in looks small because I'm towering over like Ant-Man in Endgame, and I'm now just punching demons the size of cities? And you're gonna convince me this is somehow a bad thing? Are these people allergic to fun or something? Because nothing this Kazuma brings up in their Rolling Stone article sounds bad to me. Oh no, you get a chainsaw shield that can parry attacks and bounce between enemies, and the game has Souls-like parrying mechanics in it now too. All the horror that the amazing Sekiro parry mechanics in a video game again. Oh wait, didn't Claire Obscure just do that too? And what's that? It was amazing? Well, imagine that. The game also has cool medieval weapons and big monsters that tower over me, according to this article too. That sounds really awesome. What's the issue here? Look, I love ripping and tearing as much as the next guy, but now I get to do it to big monsters that can look down to me? That's dope. What's the issue here? This is like a vegan running into a barbecue restaurant and telling everyone the food sucks because it isn't vegan. You're not amongst company that would respect your sort of opinion is what I'm trying to say here. This Rolling Stone article reads more like someone complaining that the culture has shifted in a way that they don't personally agree with. And based on the articles and opinions I've shared of this writer in this video, I think it's best for everyone, and id Software especially, that they do not cater to what people like this want in games ever for the rest of human existence. Because if they had their way, Doom would have romance options, body types, white male villains only, and the entire game would be, smeared in that pink-purple hue that all the games these sorts of sweet baby types work on pretty much. Like, I'm not kidding. Go look at a lot of the games that fail. Suicide Squad, Veilguard, Saints Row Rebooted, more. They're all purple and pink hue schemed. What's that about? I don't know. But anyway, you ask me, I think Dark Ages looks dope. Apparently, its campaign is twice the size of Eternals and has a world you can explore at your own pace. That sounds awesome to me. But this is moronic that this writer is crying that the demons aren't, nightmare fuel enough for them, especially when the trailer showed a dragon with steel plates drilled into its flesh and a bunch of abominations that would make H.R. Geiger blush. But if that's not Doom, what is, dude? It just sounds like Rolling Stone wanted Warhammer cosplay, not the pseudo sci-fi medievalism that it's serving instead. My advice? Go replay Doom 64 if you want classic, I guess, because Dark Ages is trying something new, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised that this Kazuma tried to both complain that Doom was too masculine and also tried to say the games are about capitalism, when the players, just like the Slayer, don't really care about stock prices because they're too busy shoving a plasma rifle down a Mancubus's throat and making it gag as they fill its stomach with bullets. Rolling Stone also claiming that the whole capitalism angle with the UAC is just a plot device to justify Valhalla's knocking really in the first place. In Eternal, the story dives deeper into the lore. Khan Maker, the icon of sin and the Slayer's beef with the Hell's Elite, and you're battling cosmic gods and demon lords, not Jeff Bezos. And the game's codex entries and cutscenes make it clear the Slayer's rage is about the vengeance and survival, not sticking it to the 1%. But again, now that we know what this writer writes, yeah, it's no wonder they tried to paint the picture the way that they did. Let's look at some examples. In Doom 2016, Samuel Hayden, that's the UAC cyborg boss, he's shady, but he's not a capitalist, caricature. He's a scientist obsessed with Argent energy to save humanity, not to buy a third yacht. And in Eternal, the UAC's mostly irrelevant. Earth's already a demon buffet pretty much. And the Slayer is just punching through hell priests and ancient deities, not union busting and sticking it to the white man or whatever these progressive types think like. Where's the capitalism satire? Is it the part where you chainsaw a marauder to BFG Division playing in the background? Or when you glory kill a pain elemental to a guitar riff that melts your face as Mick Gordon slaps the bass? An actual game with anti-capitalistic themes would instead be something like Cyberpunk 2077, with how it skewers megacorporations like Arasaka and Militech running Night City like a dystopian Wall Street. Or The Outer Worlds also literally having you fighting a corporate empire that treats its workers like cogs in a machine. But Doom Eternal? It's about killing demons. It's not that deep. But to end this video, before it's already gotten too long, I think it's safe to say that Rolling Stone's Doom the Dark Ages take is a misfire bigger than a missed BFG shot, and their Doom Eternal capitalism theory is straight up fanfiction pretty much. Doom the Dark Ages to me looks like a bloody medieval blast, and I'm hyped to stand and fight when it drops. And Rolling Stone can keep their political activism to themselves and cry that the game isn't what they want it to be, but I'm here for the Argent metal myself, and I look forward to ripping and tearing until it's done when this game launches. What do you think? Is Rolling Stone tripping, or do they have a point? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's argue like Hell Knights at a Demon family reunion. Thank you for watching, subscribe, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.